Welcome to Hyde Talk. I'm Bob Felt. I'm excited to welcome our guest today. We've got a new studio today, so the introduction is really exciting. So our guest today is Thomas Bragg. You know, Tom, a little intro on Tom. Tom grew up in Washington, D.C. Tom then graduated from the Hyde School class of 1983. Tom graduated from Hyde, went on to Cleveland State University, and then transferred to Western Illinois, go Leathernecks, where he played football and basketball and graduated with a degree in mass communication and minored in photography. After a brief stint in photography business, Tom then joined the Hyde faculty almost 30 years ago. Tom has been a teacher, mentor, coach, and now serves as our Dean of Students here at Hyde School. And to be quite honest, does it all. His coaching accolades, like all this stuff here today, this is not what Tom's about, but I needed to share a few of his accolades because he is one of the most humble people that I know. Four New England championships during his 30 years, 1997 Maine State Championship, Maine Coach of the Year, and three-time NEPSAC Coach of the Year, and most recently was inducted into the Maine Basketball Hall of Fame. You know, more important than the coaching and the things that Tom does, he's changed kids' lives in more ways than just basketball. So I'd like to welcome Tom Bragg to Hyde Talk.
Thank you. Thank you, Bob.
His friends call him Tommy B. So it may be TB today. It may be Tommy B. It may be a little bit of both. But Tom, great to have you here. And let's just sort of jump into it. Love to hear a little bit. You know, you grew up in D.C. Love to hear a little bit about sort of Tom Bragg as a child growing up. What gave you the bug for sports?
Well, I grew up in Washington, D.C., Payne Elementary School. School was approximately the same distance from Fitch Mitchell to the Hyde School right across the street. And Frank Crawford, the director of the rec league, gave me the bug for sports and everybody in the neighborhood because where I grew up, it was a full block radius where we can go anywhere we wanted to go. But the rec department was the hub for everybody in the neighborhood. And so all the neighborhood kids, that's where we learned how to play sports, Payne Elementary Rec Department.
What were, as a kid, I mean, we all have dreams as a kid. What were some of those dreams that you had for yourself?
Oh, I had the dreams of playing professional sports, basketball or football, although I played, baseball when I was young as well. But playing basketball or football was a dream of myself as well as others in the neighborhood.
How about, some of those you spoke about key mentors and coaches that really helped steer young Tom Bragg in the right direction?
I would say, Frank Crawford won. He was my basketball and football coach at a young age. Coached with the Payne Steelers football team. A lot of discipline, a lot of rigor. And from there, I think when I went to college and played at Western Illinois University, my assistant coach, Rios, was a great mentor to me. I've had, during that time period as well, I had a grad assistant that really took an interest to me and, really instilled some things in me. And he went off and did some things of his own. And to this day, he's a real good friend of mine. Former assistant coach at Gonzaga University and head coach at Drake University. I think along the way, I have a number of people that I just try to take bits and pieces from over the years to improve myself as a coach.
And let's just talk about growing up in D.C. and then all of a sudden you end up coming to Bath, Maine. probably a little bit of culture shock going from D.C. to Bath, Maine. How did that sort of come about that you left D.C. and ended up going to a prep school in Bath, Maine?
It was one day I was just going through the Metropolitan Police Boys Club, number 11, and Malcolm Gall was down there, unbeknownst to me, and walking through the hallway, he must have heard me, stuck his head out the door and said, "Hey, you ever thought about going away for the summer?" I said, "Nope." He said, "Come on in and have a talk with me." And I went in, talked to him, listened to what he had to say, gave me all the paperwork. And
was it set up? Was the people at the Boys Club sort of set up for him to meet you, or it just sort of happened?
Not that I think it just sort of happened. It wasn't set up for me to meet him at all. And I ran home, begged my mom to let me go, and the rest was history.
How was that for your mom, sort of letting you go? And
she had a couple conversations with me, but she did see how excited and interested I was really, into the situation, and so she gave me permission to go. And it was the first time I left D.C. to go anywhere.
Yeah. It's the first time you'd left Greater D.C., huh?
Yeah.
Bath, Maine, D.C.
Yes.
Big difference. So, you went to Hyde. Talk a little bit about your Hyde experience. Went to Hyde for how long, and what was some of the takeaways that you took from your experience being a student here?
So in the summer of 1980, just listening to a lot of because during that time it still was American Spirit was still around, performing arts show. American Spirit was a touring show, performing arts show that was, I believe, put together during the centennial year, 1976. And I think Mr. Larson, Stan Brown, Ed Legg, Joey G, that's Joe Gauld, and others put together the show. And it's been a hallmark of Hyde School for many years. And watching them do that show, and watching the individuals that were doing the show, it inspired me to want to be a part of that.
Had you ever done anything like that? Performing arts, singing?
Yeah, the Payne Elementary, we did a lot of that stuff at the rec department, and we had talent shows and so forth. And so my interest was already sparked when I seen other folks like myself up there doing things. And so the interest was sparked, and was one of the reasons I wanted to come back as well.
And what was, being here as a student, three years, right? Sophomore, junior, senior. What was a takeaway for you? Or takeaways, things that you sort of took with you from the experience?
Well, I think a lot of the things that Frank Crawford instilled in us at the rec department, Hyde School had names to them, and that was the first thing I really noticed.
Same lessons.
Same lessons.
Just different voice, different way of saying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Brothers keeper, looking out for each other, really pushing yourself, having some discipline, going after things, stepping outside yourself. A lot of those things were things that were instilled in me then and reinforced when I came to school here at Hyde. And going through Hyde, it helped me try to solidify or begin to solidify what some of my morals and standards for myself as a person were going to be in life.
Any memorable moments from your Hyde experience that you remember?
I remember, the first summer we had dory boats that we used to go out, and that was our summer exploration and learning how to navigate, use a compass, never used a compass before, asked to...
You mean you weren't walking around D.C. with a compass a lot?
No, not at all, not at all. And I think one of the, doing that summer experience gave me a love for the outdoors as well. What else? During the school year, I think just being very curious about things and being open to things, seeing people from all over the country, learning how they, live back whatever state they were in, some behaviors they've had back in, their immediate upbringing and so forth was very interesting.
Yeah. So you graduate from Hyde and obviously went on to, pursue some of your dreams athletically. What was the transition? I mean, a lot of kids get into, the transition from high school to college. It's a big transition. I know I went through it, but talk about your transition from high school to really competitive Division I athletics initially at Cleveland State.
Well, I was originally going to go to Boston College. Kevin Mackey was assistant coach there under Gary Williams. And I had some trepidation about going to Boston College.
Why?
Because I didn't know if I can hack it academically.
Yeah.
And so Kevin Mackey got a job at Cleveland State to be the head coach.
Who was the head coach at BC at that point? Was it Gary Williams?
Gary Williams.
Oh, wow.
Gary Williams. Yeah. Kevin Mackey got the job at Cleveland State, asked me to go with him. And I said, sure, I'll go with you, no problem.
Did you ever visit the school?
Never visited school at all.
So leap of faith.
Leap of faith, for me I was still having a Division I scholarship. I did want to stay at BC, playing the Big East at the time. I grew up around the Big East, Georgetown Hoyas was my team. So it was the dreams, everything was falling in line, but went on with Kevin Mackey up to Cleveland State. The transition to Cleveland State was a very interesting one.
And where is Cleveland State? Is it right in Cleveland?
Right in downtown Cleveland, Ohio.
Yeah.
Yes. And it was a transition for me because I was used to playing 3 sports. Didn't really play at Cleveland State in the fall.
There's no football.
No football there.
Right? Yeah.
We had late mid-fall. We had some more intense basketball practices. Went through the season. There were a number of things, just red flags during the season. So by the end of the season, I decided to not return to Cleveland State, and I told Coach Mackey that I wouldn't be returning.
How did that go? Like, how did you come to that? Was it like a moral decision? Did you have mentors? Did you have your mom saying, "Hey, you got to get out of there"? How did that sort of come about?
No, it was a moral decision.
Yeah.
I had to make the decision on my own. I didn't talk to folks about it. I mulled over rolled over the decision and thought about it quite often through the spring term. And I expressed to him I wasn't returning. He didn't ask me why. I just told him that, things just don't fit for me here. And he wished me best of luck. And from that moment on, I went out and tried to sell myself again.
So what did you do? So you transfer, and then were you thinking in my mind, I also want to play, obviously I want to get a good education, find the right fit, but like I want to get back into football. How did you go about finding schools?
I thought the best shot I had was to stay within schools in the conference that I was in. And at that time was the what was it? I can't even remember the name of the conference. But the particular time is the Horizon Conference that they have now was the conference. And I just, talked to a lot of coaches in the league. And, one school in particular, Western Illinois University, spoke with them. I knew one of the guys on the football team. He talked to the football coach. The coach knew of me from watching me during the basketball season. I did a little background about me in terms of football. And I wound up getting a football scholarship to Western. And so I played football there that fall and had to sit out the first season for basketball because of transfer.
But you didn't have to for football.
Didn't have to for football.
Okay.
Right.
Yep.
Right. So that was great. And I just felt like I was back at Hyde playing 3 sports, going to study hall in the evening, etc. It was an easy transition for me doing so.
Just so the listeners know, Tom is the only student, he would never say this because he's very humble, but only student we've had at Hyde that's played 2 Division I sports in college. What was it like sort of battling, the football, then you're done getting beat up in the fall and then shifting right into playing basketball. What was that like for you? I mean, I know it occupied your time, so it kept you busy and you loved that, but what was that transition like?
It took me it wasn't too bad. It wasn't too bad. We would finish basketball on a Saturday. I would start football on. I'm sorry. Finish football on a Saturday. I would start football that Monday. And if we went to the tournament, it prolonged it a little bit more. But it's a different sport, so you have to, condition yourself differently. So it took me a couple weeks to really get conditioned for basketball, run up down the court, more stopping and going than you would do on the football field. And after a couple weeks, I was ready to go.
So you graduated from Western. Was it tough leaving the sports behind and sort of moving on? You graduated with a degree in mass communications and photography. Tell me about sort of moving on from being the athlete into photography. And
I went to school and I wanted to be a DJ or a broadcaster, but in my senior year, I fell out. The love for the broadcasting dissipated, and so I just stuck with the photography. When I graduated, worked for a couple of different photography companies. Changed jobs every 3 months, and Malcolm Gall kept hounding me for over a year to come up and take a look at Hyde, be a teacher, and never had any thoughts in my mind about being a teacher. I thought he was crazy, but he even asked me.
I felt the same way.
And so, and then the spring of '90? The winter of '90. He finally convinced me to come up to check out the James Roman basketball tournament. And I came up, saw the atmosphere, the excitement. And after that, I just said, I might as well do this. I'm not locked in really to anything. I might as well give it a shot. Went back home, talked to, my first wife at the time. And she said, sure, let's go and give it a shot. So we did so.
That was almost 30 years ago. So what really, obviously, working with kids, it's more than just, you coach life. I know that's sometimes corny and used a lot, but that's the reality of the situation working with kids. But what really attracted you to being a coach? And, do you also think your experience at Hyde helped shape your approach to coaching kids?
Yes, I think it did help shape that. I think talking with Ray Giacoletti, who was assistant coach at Gonzaga. Talking with him, he encouraged me to give it a shot as well. And, I think teaching at Hyde, one of the biggest things I wanted to do is just get back what I received when I was a student at Hyde. And through that, not only was it in the classroom, was also on the athletic field. And so I just really wanted to get back a lot of what I received, particularly from Gary Kent. Was a big mentor for me here doing the sports time, and his style of coaching was similar to Frank Crawford down at the rec department in D.C., as well as my Bruce Craddock, my college football coach. Their personalities and coaching styles were similar, and that propelled me to want to, emulate a lot of the things they did in their coaching.
Yeah. Let's just say I was a kid looking to come to Hyde and be a part of the basketball program. Tom also, Tom coaches, women's lacrosse, has coached football. What am I missing? He's a very good dodgeball player, even though it's not a sport here. But if I was a kid coming to you saying, hey, Coach Bragg, I want to, what are you looking for from me on and off the court? What are you looking for the kids that you coach on and off the court?
I try to instill some discipline and some rigor in these kids on and off the court. And I'm trying to instill that and to let them understand that what you do on the basketball court, you have to emulate off the basketball court. 'Cause that's how I was taught, and that's how I grew up. And so I just try to do the same thing. And some kids buy in, and some kids don't, but the vast majority did. And so a kid coming here, they got really want to take a look at themselves, open themselves up. I think if they're just coming to continue to do some of the same behaviors or have the same attitudes they've had prior to coming to Hyde, it's going to be a rough time, and it may or may not work for you. And 9 times out of 10, it won't work until you open yourself up and do some things differently. So that's what I try to instill in some of the kids. Look for kids, talent would always be welcome. However, you got to have some discipline and, try to help the kids, try to instill some morals with the kids as well.
The luxury, I also would say, the luxury of being at a boarding school is, we love our parents here, but we don't have to have, the parents aren't at all the games. How do you, you've got AAU now, you have all this stuff. How do you navigate parents? I know we're pretty lucky here because the parents are pretty removed, but I know I've had it in time when parents approach you about playing time and things like that. How do you handle that?
Yeah, it's the one I'm lucky that I'm at a boarding school, and I'm thankful because you don't have to deal with a lot of that all the time. But every once in a while, you get a parent or two that's that you got to work through and work with, and just try to listen to the parents, listen to the student, and like myself, I remember a moment in college where I wanted to quit the football team after my second year because I felt like I wasn't getting the time, and that I thought I was better than the senior that was in front of me. And, so I did walk off the team, and my assistant coach told me to come back, Randy Ball. He said, come back, Tommy, and you do A, B, and C, and we'll sit down and watch the films. And we filmed everything in college. And so we sat down and watched the films, and I saw everything that he said I wasn't doing. And after about 5 minutes, I said, all right, coach, that's it. We can turn it off. He said, no. We're going to sit here and we're going to watch the whole film. And that means the whole 2.5-hour practice was set and watch, from each segment that I had to go through. And I was like, wow, that was a real eye-opener. And that's what I try to instill with some of the kids. Kids got questions about doing this or that, or you're not fair, or you don't give me this opportunity. Okay, I'm going to give you the opportunity, and I try to go through it the same way as Randy Ball did it with me.
I've known you for 30 years. We need to get you on more podcasts so we can learn more about you. That's a great story. I didn't know that. How about ups and downs? Working with kids, ups and downs of coaching. What's been? We've all had difficult. I can think of my own difficult moments. Challenging moments in coaching that come to mind.
I would say
it could be an experience, could be whatever.
I'd say the most challenging moments in coaching are trying to move the kids that are skeptical from being skeptical to buying in.
Yeah.
That's probably the biggest thing. And, there are times when you may have 5 kids that are skeptical, and if you can get 4 out of the 5, I feel like I've been pretty successful. If I only get 2 out of the 5, I don't think I did my job. And some of the highlights in coaching are some of the teams I've had that didn't really, didn't go win championships and so forth. And the one team I can think of is the Ross Sanders senior year, his basketball team. Wasn't a very talented team, was probably one of the most disciplined and teams I've had, and probably one of the most enjoyable seasons I've coached, and we didn't win a championship.
How would you, we sort of covered this, but how would you categorize like your style of coaching?
I'd say a little old school, mixed with some nuances of today. Even this year, I need to change a little bit more in regard to my coaching.
Talk a little bit about the changes that you've had to. I mean, you've been doing it 30 years, so kids have changed, parents have changed. How have you had to sort of change your approach to kids and coaching, and everything's on Instagram and drills have changed. So how have you had to sort of navigate that for yourself?
I think probably one of the biggest things that I've noticed over the years, in the past, kids would have to buy into what I was doing. I don't think kids today feel like they have to buy in anymore. And I find myself over the last 3 years trying to adapt things to accommodate kids. And this year, I think I'm not trying to accommodate anymore because that just doesn't work for me. However, I do think I need to, grow a little in terms of changing things up and how I coach because of the personnel we're getting. We get European kids that we have now that are playing sports. I have to, and they're completely different than domestic kids that play sports. And so over the last couple of years, I had to figure out how to blend those two, athletic situations together. And I think this year, I'm ready to do that. And I think I've had to be more curious and open. I think that's one of the things that's helped me in my coaching is being curious and not being locked in. Even when I was doing some of the old school stuff, it may have seemed like I was locked in and not listening or do it my way or the highway. But in doing so, I still had some folks that I was taking a look at and trying to adapt things as well. Like all coaches, you want to be successful. You try to, you borrow things, steal things from other coaches to make yourself better and your program better.
And how about, in your opinion, this isn't just about sports per se, but what do you see as some of the most challenging things high school kids are up against today? And, what do you see that is, and how can educators, coaches support them?
Well, I think, in terms of high school kids, I know in sports in particular with high school kids, I think American kids are up against just playing sports all the time as opposed to practicing. A lot of the AAU programs, no matter what the sport may be, they play a lot of games, but they do very little practice. The Europeans, complete opposite. They do a lot of practicing and play less games. And so I do think that the skill aspect, the Europeans are farther ahead than Americans in whatever the sport may be. But I think educators can help students in terms of the sports piece is trying to encourage kids to continue to be multi-dynamic in terms of sports.
That's changed.
It's changed big time. And I think kids that are single-minded sports throughout the school year or for their just year round, I think it hurts them. For myself, I think I've learned a lot and became a better athlete by playing different sports. And the sport that whether it's basketball or football, the things I may have learned in lacrosse helped me to be a better basketball and football player, strategy things and so forth. In my coaching, I take from, baseball, baseball, soccer, wrestling coaches, women's basketball coaches, to improve myself as a coach as well. So just like myself, looking at different sports, I think the educators can help kids by helping them continue to keep their options open and play sports for the love of sports as opposed to being single-minded sports players.
Yeah. Okay, rapid fire question for you. We didn't go over this beforehand, so do the best you can. If you could spend an afternoon or a dinner with somebody, it doesn't have to be a meal, with one person or a coach, could be anybody, who would it be and why?
It'd be Popovich, San Antonio Spurs.
Greg Popovich,
yep.
Coach of the Spurs. Why?
I like his style of coaching. I think he is tough, but I also think he's level-headed. I think he is the kind of guy that I would like to emulate a lot of his coaching when I get older, because I think he also has the ability to bring in different individuals to his program, males or females, to help mentor as well. I just like his style of playing, and looking at the players he's had over the years. He hasn't had the most talented teams, but they have a lot of success on those teams.
Yeah, I like him too. I mean, he's tough, but he's also keeps it light. He's got that balance. But I just want to say to the San Antonio Spurs, we just signed Tom to a 5-year contract, so you can't have him. Last rapid fire question. If you could go back 30 years to young Tom Bragg as a coach and give him some advice from Tom Bragg now, I won't say your age, Tom Bragg now, what would you tell him?
I probably would say don't be so stubborn. Be more open to new ideas. Listen to the players more. Give them more opportunities to help build the program outside of just having talent and wins on the floor.
And, last and certainly not least, Tom was, recently inducted into the Maine Basketball Hall of Fame, which for folks of us that live in Maine, that's like being part of basketball royalty. I'm just, maybe hard to describe it, but what did that honor mean to you personally and professionally?
It meant more personally to me than anything. In the thank you piece that they asked us to do, if we wanted to do, I did one. And the first thing I did was I thanked the Maine Hall of Fame Basketball Committee for not only selecting me, but even thinking about selecting me, even me being a thought in their minds of putting me into the Hall of Fame. I enjoy coaching in Maine, enjoy coaching in New England, and, going from Calais, Maine down to York, Maine, there are people to this day who recognize me and say things to me, and that feels good to me. It feels good when we used to be in the MPA. They still remember those days. And I enjoy Maine spectators, and but it really felt good personally to be recognized by my peers and others for this great honor.
How was it having your sisters were there, your mom was there? How was that? Obviously, your wife was there. How was that, Tommy?
It was good. It was good for them to see that. I didn't have any expectations. I didn't know how things would unfold that day. However, it was they exceeded whatever expectations I had. I thought it was well done, and I enjoyed the day itself. And I felt proud to share that with my family and friends, and represent Hyde School as well.
Big time.
Yeah.
I think for us, we were proud because we, that's our guy. As I said before, signed him to a 5-year contract. But, it was a great day for you. Well deserved, long overdue. Not throwing shade anywhere, but I just think it really says a lot about you, Tom, and what you do for kids, and it's so much more than basketball. So I think it was great to have you on today to sort of hear your story about being a coach and lessons you've learned and throwing some advice out to coaches out there and educators. So awesome to have you here on Hyde Talk today. So thanks for being here. And, to our listeners, check us out on all our social media channels. Check us out on our podcast platforms, and we'll see you next time.